You know, when you think of Miami, you probably picture sun, sand, beautiful beaches. But there's something else going on. It's this constant, hidden pressure. And today, we're going to dive into a secret war that's happening right now inside the walls of pretty much every home there. So let me ask you a question. What do you think is the biggest threat to a house in Miami? I bet one thing immediately jumps to mind for most people, and it's a pretty obvious answer. But it's not just the hurricanes. Of course, they're a huge, very visible threat. But there's something else, something much quieter that's causing damage all year long. Yeah, it's this silent battle, and it's happening right under your feet. It's basically a conflict between Miami's unique environment and the pipes that, make our modern lives possible. So let's break down what's really going on. Okay, so to really get a grip on this war, we've got to profile the attackers. And no, these aren't some cartoon villains. They're the basic environmental factors that, well, they just define Miami. First on the list, saltwater intrusion. See, Miami is barely above sea level, so corrosive saltwater from the ocean is always seeping into the ground. It's this aggressive, totally unseen force that just eats away at any metal pipes buried down there. And what makes it even worse is the very ground Miami is built on, porous limestone. You can think of it like a giant sponge. This soft rock doesn't just let that corrosive saltwater travel super easily, it can actually shift over time, putting real physical stress on the pipes buried inside it. But the attack isn't just from the outside, it's coming from the inside too. Miami's water is what we call hard, which really just means it's packed with minerals like calcium and magnesium. And over time, those minerals build up inside your pipes, creating this crusty scale that literally chokes the water flow and just destroys your appliances. And then, of course, there's the climate itself. That constant, sticky, high humidity, it's like a catalyst for rust on any exposed metal. But then you get the other side of it, those surprising winter cold snaps. For an older pipe that's already stressed out, a sudden temperature drop can be the final straw. Snap. Crack. So all of this brings us to the pipes themselves. You see, a ton of homes in Miami, especially those built before 1980, have galvanized steel pipes. In an environment like this, they're basically ticking time bombs, just rusting away from the inside out. Now compare that to modern materials like PEX or copper, which are literally designed to fight back against this exact kind of multi-front attack. All right, so with all these forces attacking your home's plumbing, how would you even know if you're losing the battle? Well, it turns out these environmental factors leave behind some pretty clear clues, some very recognizable symptoms. Okay, these are the red flags you gotta watch out for. Is your water looking kind of rusty? That's corrosion. Are your drains just always slow no matter what? That's buildup. See a sudden, crazy spike in your water bill? Yep, that's probably a hidden leak. Low water pressure, weird gurgling sounds from the toilet, or those telltale water stands? Really, they're all cries for help from your home's plumbing. And speaking of hidden leaks, get this. Just think about the number 200. That's how many gallons of water a single worn-out toilet can waste per day. It's just silently draining away, hitting your wallet hard, not to mention the environment. And check out this comparison, because it really puts things into perspective. A water heater, on average in the US, it'll last you about 12 to 15 years. But in Miami, that constant assault from hard water sediment, it cuts that lifespan down to just 8 to 10 years. That's a huge difference. It's a perfect real-world example of how this specific environment just speeds up the process of things breaking down. But look, it's not all doom and gloom. The good news is that technology has totally evolved. Plumbers now have this incredible high-tech arsenal to fight back against these hidden enemies. Think about this. You don't have to just start tearing down walls anymore to find a leak. That's the old way. Now, technicians use things like thermal imaging cameras to actually see temperature changes inside a wall. Or they use these super sensitive acoustic sensors to literally hear a tiny drip underground. It's become surgical. It's precise. And that same kind of evolution, it applies to clearing drains too. The traditional snake just kind of pokes a hole through a clog, right? It often leaves a bunch of gunk behind. But the modern way, hydrojetting, is a whole different ballgame. It uses a high-pressure blast of water to completely scour the entire inside of the pipe clean. It just blasts away years of that nasty buildup we were talking about. So, knowing who the enemy is and having the right high-tech tools, that's half the battle. But the other half, that's all about having a clear strategy for victory. And a winning strategy really just comes down to a solid process.
It starts with getting the right expert to your door when they say they will. Then it's about a proper diagnosis, finding the root cause of the problem, not just patching up a symptom. After that, you get a clear, upfront price, no surprises. And finally, you get a professional repair that's done right, cleaned up, and backed by warranty. It's how you turn a chaotic emergency into a controlled solution.
Now, a huge part of that strategy is about playing by the rules. Miami-Dade County has super strict building codes for a reason. They were literally created to protect homes from these very specific environmental pressures. And what that means is that having a licensed professional who actually knows those codes, well, it's absolutely non-negotiable. So when you boil it all down, the best defense strategy really has three key parts. First, you, the homeowner, have to be vigilant. Second, you need to use modern, tough materials. And third, you have to rely on expert knowledge of the local codes that were designed specifically for this challenging place. And that kind of leaves us with one final big question to think about. We've seen exactly how Miami's environment is waging this secret war on its infrastructure. So it really makes you wonder, right? How is your city's unique environment, its geology, its climate, its water, how is it quietly shaping the homes where you live, and what does that mean for the future?